Welcome back to Still Loading, the podcast where we talk about the decline of everything, but mostly video games. My name is Aiden.
And I'm Matt.
And today we've got another spicy topic, artificial difficulty.
Oh, yes.
And this is not just games that are hard. This is not games that are difficult, challenging, whatever. This is games that is bullshit hard, bullshit difficulty, ridiculously hard for no fucking reason.
Mm-hmm.
And this can be anywhere from a gameplay perspective, mechanics within the game, a simple way of just how you progress in the game can have artificial difficulty in it. So I think it's only fair though that since Elden Ring just came out, me and Matt have both been playing it, so we have some thoughts about it.
Oh yes, some points.
Do you want to go first? I'm probably going to say mean things about it. So
okay, yeah, I'll go first then. My initial review for I think I have 22 hours in the game so far. Initial review for me would be, I think it's fantastic. I think it accomplishes, it scratches that Dark Souls itch for me, as well as having elements from open world that I do like. I am running into a few problems, getting lost being one. I think you've got more to say about that than I do.
Oh yeah,
but
it's like we had a whole episode about those.
Oh yeah, dude. Like, I do think the progression is a little wrong, but overall, I'm enjoying it. I'm really it came to me as advertised. I'm happy with it.
I mean, I'll preface, I like the game. I do. But I don't think that we should ignore its flaws
Absolutely
just because it's a Miyazaki game and it's another Dark Souls game and George R. R. Martin did the writing. And I do not agree with the 10 out of 10 rating that the world seems to give it. Mm-hmm. And I don't even think the people who are giving it that rating agree with it anymore, but I'll get into that in a little bit. I do really like the world feel. It is nice to just ride your horse around or just do stuff or explore forts, or I love the hidden dungeons. I like that they're really short. They're not fucking 3 hours long like in Skyrim.
No kidding.
I like that. The open world does feel good. It feels like it's got a great atmosphere, and the map's not as big as I thought it would be, which is nice because I that's a open world flaws when it's an enormous cluttered fucking map, and it's just I don't want that. I want some time to breathe when I find one thing to the next.
Yeah, less is more, I think.
Yeah, and I like that each section is I like that the world is segmented. There's different areas to go into, countries or provinces. I don't know what they'd be called in the game, but I really like that. And it's got a great discovery reward system. I like that you can just go out of your way to go into a fort or go into a weird dungeon or something like that and find a cool, maybe not useful, but a cool item, a cool whatever. So those are all positives for me. But then that goes into the fact it's an open world game and it's got the same open world issues as a lot of them do. Whereas the number one big one is the pacing.
Yeah,
pacing is bad because you start the game and it's what you'd expect, typical opening Dark Souls level essentially. But that curve immediately changes to where all of a sudden your weapons are not dealing any damage, your armor's not taking any hits for you. It goes beyond the whole get good mentality, because
totally.
It's well, what am I supposed to do here? I'm only level fucking 20. What do you want from me exactly? It just really goes into a bad pacing thing. And I think what it is though is that they probably expected you to grind a bunch.
I'd agree.
They probably expect you to okay, well, there's going to be those people who explore the open world before they even fight the first boss. So let's compensate for that by making everything else just really hard and design it around this. That way, even if you do grind, it'll still be challenging. Which I guess for people who hate themselves, that's great. But
I don't.
For people who just want to experience the game, that's not great.
No.
So that's kind of an issue there. And then anytime an open world game takes it, the appeal of an open world game, it's to do whatever you want to do, right? It's to, if you want to hard focus the story, you can. If you want to do the side stuff, you can. It kind of takes that choice away, because it's well, I can't fucking do the story because I have to go grind because I can't deal any damage to this fucking boss or even these enemies. It was in the castle in the first area. I think after one of the first second or two checkpoints, that I was okay, all of a sudden I'm not dealing any damage. What's going on?
Yeah. I
only got as far as I did because I started off as a samurai, so I had the bleed effect on my sword. So I was well, if I hit it enough, it'll fucking die eventually, but from bleed damage, but not from my weapon dealing damage. So there's just kind of that. The story is also very lacking. Not that it's not good. I just can't fucking find it. So. I'm sure that it's good, and I am interested in it. The few bits of story I have gotten to experience, I'm invested. I want to know what happened in this world that we're playing in. You know, I'm invested. I just can't fucking find the plot, and
Yeah.
that's the frustrating part. And I know I'm not alone in this too, because in my research for like just kind of what everyone's been feeling like since it came out, like it's kind of turned from that like, you know, oh, it's 10 out of 10 to like, where the fuck do I go? So I'm not the only one having that issue, and I think that just a little bit more guidance would have been what you needed, and it would have been fine. One thing is that there are side quests in the game. It tells you where some of them are, but not where all of them are. After you initiate the side quest, it'll tell you where to go for some of them, but not all of them.
Really?
Which is a flaw, because it's an open world game. You should have some direction of where to fucking go.
Right.
But why this is even bigger of a flaw is I had a complete roadblock for a boss, because I started a side quest that when you go into this area, a boss is supposed to jump you and initiates the whole thing in that area. If you start this side quest, though, that boss no longer shows up. And I found this out by researching it. So I finally broke and looked up a guide of like, where the fuck do I go for like the story? I didn't look up side dungeons or anything like that. I was just like, where do I go for the story? How do I make the story do a thing? And I found out like, oh yeah, like if you have the side quest initiated, it changes how that encounter goes, and so it changes how that boss goes later on, which is interesting. But how the fuck would I know that without looking it up?
Right.
Without any form of guidance, you know? So that's just kind of my gripes with it, essentially.
Do you feel like that's maybe the expectation the developer team took? Like, they expect people to do some research online. They expect these guides to be available and present. Do you feel like that was a conscious choice, or something that happened accidental?
I think that's a really good point, actually, because we do live in a technological age, and I think you said it earlier, like within like 12 hours, there are like guides of like, go here, do this, go here, do that. It is possible the developers kind of took a backseat on that, or just like, well, even if we don't put it in the game, like they'll figure it out eventually. Like it'll be readily available on the internet at some point. So it's very possible. That's actually a really good point.
I have no like. It seems to me that mentality, and again, we talk about the decline of everything, but that mentality, to me, is kind of, if that is the case, if that's the way it was playing out, that's kind of lazy.
Yeah, well, I forgive them a little bit if that's the case, because I actually think that they did the number one like saving grace of open world games, which is like they picked what they wanted to do and they did it good.
Okay, yeah.
Combat is super polished. It's the best feeling Dark Souls game I've ever played.
Absolutely.
Before that, I really like Bloodborne. Sekiro is still my favorite. That it's, as people like to point out, it's not a Souls game, so it's like, okay, fine, whatever. Or it's not a Dark Souls game, but that's fine. But combat's super polished. It feels really good. It's not clunky, which is the case with Dark Souls 2.
Oh, yeah. It's
not plain like it was in Dark Souls 1. It's not kind of like really glitchy like it was in Dark Souls 3. Like, this feels good. And they kind of took like every single good idea from every Souls game and like put it into one game. Like every single good idea, even power stancing from Dark Souls 2, which is the only good idea in that game, came back in this game, and it feels really, really nice. And it's, you know, they did the thing you're supposed to do. You pick the thing you want to be good at and you do it. The game looks good, the game feels good. It's just these other sins that they can't seem to get past, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
Yeah, I said I don't hate the game. It's just, it's not an 10 out of 10. It's probably like a 6.5, maybe a 7, depending on how things keep going. I'll see, like, I'm going to beat it before I get the final score, but right now I'm saying like a 6.5, maybe 7 out of 10. And that's not because it's not a good game. It's just that these are flaws that mean a lot to me. They're things that really piss me off about open world games, and like the fact that it's here, I was just like, no, I'm not feeling it.
Yeah, I haven't encountered any real deal breakers yet. But again, like you're saying on positives, just for fun, I put a short sword in each hand and watched how they worked together. And I was like, man, that's really cool. And I was like, I wonder if they did this with all the weapons. So I put great swords in each hand, and I was like, wow, it does the thing here too, but the attacks are different. I was like, wow, that's really cool. And I was like, what about weapons that don't really go together? Like, I don't know, a spear and a sword. And I was like, aha, here we go. These two things don't play together. But then I thought about it, and I was like, why would you? Why would you wield these two weapons together? So it makes perfect sense. Another thing I want to touch on about a positive that I really liked, and I think this might have been some of Martin's influence on how he wrote the story. I noticed a lot of the knights, like just in their aesthetic, they look a lot more real, quote unquote, to me. Like they look like they're wearing surcoats and stuff like that. And I was like, this definitely feels like somebody with a Western eye said, no, these knights should look like this because of historical reasons, versus what we've gotten in the past where everything feels very Japan. Like case in point, Iron Keep, Dark Souls 2. I was like, wow, these look like if somebody from Japan described what a European knight would look like. That's totally what, like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm saying that the way they look in Elden Ring, I was like, wow, I'm actually killing knights. This is really cool.
I agree with that. Yeah, it does have a like at the world feel, like I was saying. I agree with that. It does feel very good. I actually agree. It probably is like his influence as well. From what I know, what George R. R. Martin did was he wrote the world history, and then from there they built on top of that. So like he created the backstory essentially, and so it makes sense with like the Western kind of eye. I one thing I've been liking about the knights, like it's such a simple detail. I like that they're wearing different colors for the different regions, just like they're part of a different clan or a different like crest, you know?
Yeah.
That's just a nice little detail. Like it makes sense. Like they're not all gonna look like Soldier A essentially. Like, you know.
No, everybody looks like they belong there. And what we said in the open world podcast too, I want to touch on too, because the biggest complaint I have is when a world doesn't feel lived in.
It does.
This world feels very lived in. Like, I believe you. Like, oh, this guy's from here? Totally. I wonder what they're all about. Like, it gets, that brain train flowing. And when you get mix that with, Miyazaki's ability to tell a story without telling a story, I mean, that to me just like, if I was going to say somebody was new to From games, this is probably the one I would recommend.
Really?
100%. I'd be like, play this. If you like what's going on here, definitely try the other titles. But if you're brand new to this kind of gameplay, I think it's forgiving in all the right areas, and like you said, it captures all the good parts.
I would recommend Demon Souls, because that game, I think it would prepare them perfectly for Elden Ring. One of the things I've noticed about the pacing of the game, and I think that's maybe why I'm like less angry about it and like a little bit more forgiving, is that it is very kind of similar to like Demon Souls was.
Really?
Because that game basically had a hub world, essentially. Like you had a hub world, and then there were like the 5 different stones you could go into, and like those are the 5 different levels essentially.
Okay.
And each level had like 3 sections to it basically. And very often, like if you didn't have the gear for it or like the right weapon or whatever, crafting wasn't the big thing in that game, or leveling up stuff wasn't the big thing in that game, as it is. It definitely made a difference, but it wasn't as big as in Elden Ring for sure. But if your stuff just wasn't good, like you might like finish the first section of one level, then like, okay, I need to go to the other levels now because I can't get past this part. You kind of bounce around the different worlds until like you had enough to like kind of progress through all of them.
Really?
So I think that would prepare them for the open worldness, and I think it's forgiving in the right areas. Like Demon Souls, like looking back on it now, is very simple. It's kind of like where a lot of ideas about Dark Souls began, and you can see the influences even from Demon Souls and like current Souls games. I think that influence is still in Elden Ring even, because like I said, like it feels like that non-linear but like bouncing around area to area feel like that. I feel like that comes from Demon Souls. I might be projecting, but that's what it kind of feels like.
That makes sense, just because I've played Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3 and Bloodborne. Played a little bit of Sekiro, but that was not for me. Didn't ever get a chance to play Demon Souls, but it feels like every installment they try something new and they trim the fat of what didn't work before.
Yes.
And like,
or they nerf the stuff that worked way too well.
Yeah, well,
fucking Dark Souls.
my biggest example of this would be the introduction of the FP bar in 3. Like,
oh yeah,
that was like when I played that the first time, I was like, oh shit, I have a 3rd bar. Like, what is that all about? And it got me interested, and I tried the new mechanic out, and I was like, man, that's really cool. I wish they would have had this in Dark Souls 1 kind of deal. Because to me, it made more sense, like from like a realism perspective. Like, well, yeah, the amount of energy you would have to do spells or cool stuff should probably come from the self, not the spell. Because in Dark Souls 1, it was all about uses. Like, how many uses does this spell have? And they never really explained why. It's like, why can I only do this 5 times?
Yeah.
Like, they have no reason for that other than it's a video game, here's the mechanic. versus playing 3 with the bar. I was like, oh, that makes sense if I choose to build my character that way, to have more of this resource or this energy pool. Well, that just makes sense, doesn't it? Like, yeah, it was beautiful. Like I said, just I've got mostly overwhelming positive things to say about Elden Ring.
Yeah, I mean, if not, with the exception of the cardinal sins that, like,
Yeah.
I feel like it has with the open world, like, the whole last episode I talked about it, like, those are cardinal sins to me. Like, if those exist, they are the enemy and they need to fucking go away. So, I mean, I'm fully aware I probably take this stuff more seriously in that regard, but, like, it still possesses them and I'm upset about it, and I can't get over the fact that it possesses them. But I mostly have good things to say about it. Like, yeah. I think I too. I'm happy to see the FP bar return.
Yeah.
Have you built towards FP at all?
So I put a few points into that, just because something else I want to say that's really cool about the weapon arts and stuff. Before, like in Dark Souls 3, I would pick weapons that I liked swinging, but didn't necessarily like the special FP move or whatever. In this, I'm just so excited to try it and use it because it feels very usable. Like I'm running a spear build right now, and just like that super thrust that you can do is effective, and it makes me feel good. I'm like, yeah, that's totally how I would swing that if I was trying to skewer somebody, So
I've seen some cool spear moves where like you're basically a dragoon from Final Fantasy. Like they fucking jump in the air and shit. Like it's pretty cool. I briefly considered doing a spear build as well, just because I was like, I can be a dragoon in this game. Like, that's pretty awesome. I leveled up my FP just because I found a weapon that's really reliant on it. Like it's all of its power comes from like its supercharged like FP moves, but also because I was really into the summons. I like the spirits. I think they're cool.
Yeah.
I actually feel like a necromancer, like a death knight or something.
Okay, so full disclosure, that is the only thing I'd use the internet for, because
that's how to use it.
Yeah, it doesn't really do a real great job. It gives you, like, spoiler free, like you acquire what you need to do that, but I was trying to put that item on my belt, and I was like, why can't I put the item on my belt? And then I put them on my belt, and I was like, why can't I summon them here? And I was like, oh, that's what that icon means. Cool.
It feels good. I like that they're not just for bosses. I like that if you go into like a mini dungeon or something like that, like not typically like not mini dungeons, but like overworld maps, like if you're going to a fort or something like that. I love you can summon them because it feels good. Like it just feels fun. Like why not? Why wouldn't you be able to?
I 100% agree. And for my playstyle, like 1v1, I can take pretty much anything. It's just a matter of timing and figuring that enemy out. When you start stacking like 2v1, 3v1, that's when I start to struggle just based on my build. But I've noticed those do for me what summons do in boss fights. It just gets the heat off me for a second, so I can think about what I need to do next. I think it was a great addition.
Yeah, I had mixed feelings about them at first because I would quite honestly forget about them.
Yep.
And so I'm like, oh right, I could use my summon there. And then I started using them, but I didn't level them up at all. So they like get killed at like one shot pretty much. And I was like, these are useless. Like, why would anyone want these? And I found I can level them up, and I was like, oh okay.
I did not know that.
You can level them up?
Nope. That's new to me.
It's a side quest that you have to it's a dialogue thing. Like it's it's not explained at all. It's just I basically stumbled upon it because one thing I love in any RPG is like when NPCs have a dialogue about another NPC, and so I keep on the lookout because it does that a lot in this game. And so like it's just pure chance. I was like, oh, this person wants to talk about this person, and I was like, it just led into this whole thing where like you get a blacksmith, essentially a special blacksmith who can level up your spirits. So
that's cool. It's another thing that just occurred to me, and something I think why I enjoy playing in this world so much. And I think it really helps with the lived-in aspect. Specifically Dark Souls 3, everyone, and Dark Souls 1, everyone is depressed.
Yeah.
I've ran into a few NPCs in this world that kind of have that going on, but I've ran into a few more that are like, nope, this is the world I live in, and I'm like, obviously not super stoked with the situation, but they don't bum me out,
Yeah.
They're just like, yeah, this is.
They have like a noble calling,
Yeah.
So those NPCs are like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not the crestfallen knight. I'm not gonna sit by the bonfire and bitch about life. Like, I'm gonna go out and do something about it. I'm like, God, that makes me so happy.
Yeah. So, speaking of that as well, not the crestfallen thing per se, but so in like Dark Souls 1, you were like an undead like anyone else. Like
Yep.
you were you had the curse mark, which I thought was really nice. And then that was kind of weird in Dark Souls 2. Like I feel like that whole like dark mark it was called, I think, or whatever it was. It wasn't the curse mark, but it wasn't.
Right.
What I like is that essentially the concept of the tarnished is that like it. I just like when like in a game, all hope is not pinned on you.
Yeah.
I like there are other tarnished in the world. I like that the very like beginning of the cinematic explains that like you're one of them as well, but like not one of the ones.
Oh yeah.
But I like that there are other tarnished in the world because it means that like it's not just like you're not built up to be the hero right away.
Yeah.
Which is one thing I really liked about it, and it has like that same like Dark Souls 1 vibe of like you're just an undead, like you're just a cursed undead like everyone else, you know.
Yeah, like the whole zero to hero aspect is something that I really enjoy. I like building my legend. And something else just on the NPCs, like more often than not, these people like they get your situation, they know where you come from, and they're just here to help you out. And I think that's a real breath of fresh air for this, like for this game specifically. Like they don't all talk shit to you or try to take your stuff.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, well, me too. Like we're in the same boat. So here's what I've learned in that time, and if this helps you out, great. Like that was just like a huge surprise for me because I was like, I gotta worry about going back into a universe that's gonna bum me out, and then that didn't happen, and I was very happy.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Like it has been different. It's been different enough that's a breath of fresh air. I really enjoy that. This is not the Elden Ring podcast. This is the artificial difficulty episode. So this will kind of like segue into that. Elden Ring has a lot of artificial difficulty.
It does,
and that is it kind of plays into the pacing that I was talking about in the open world episode. Again, like I was saying a little bit ago, it feels like they expect you to grind to succeed, and that's not fair. That in itself is artificial difficulty because it's like, well, what if I don't fucking want to? Like, this is an open world game, isn't it? I thought the whole point is I can play the game how I want to play it. That kind of pulls into it. What I've experienced is I've played the game a shit ton, and it seems like each level of boss fight just gets more and more ridiculous. Even like mini dungeon bosses, they're reoccurring, but they'll either add 2 of them this time or 3 of them this time, or they'll add like now it has a stupid status effect, or like now it has like you're fighting on a floor that like also gives you a status effect of some kind. Like it just keeps adding things on top of it over and over and over again. Why couldn't you just make a balanced game? That's basically what it is a lot of other Dark Souls games, the Soulsborne series, they do feel balanced in a way of like, yes, it's very hard, it's challenging, but it's not tedious, it's not bullshit. It doesn't feel unfair. It's like, okay, I need to get good, essentially. Like I need to like learn a new skill, or I need to like learn like, okay, like I can't dodge through that attack specifically, or I can't block that attack specifically. Like you need to learn a new way. A lot of the boss fights in this game just feel like they're made to be unfair right away. And that's just that's the difference between like a good balanced game and artificial difficulty. Elden Ring is not new in the series with that. Dark Souls had it too.
Oh yes.
Specifically, one aspect that I've tested thoroughly is in Dark Souls 1, where the Taurus Demon, I think it's called, on the bridge, like the first real boss fight you have.
That's Taurus Demon, yeah.
I've tested it out where I've worn like the highest physical defense armor I can. To see how much damage I can take. And it seems to be a set amount of like either way you're going to take, like it deals like 300 damage, and then like your armor might negate like 20-50 of that or something like that, you know? So either way you're taking this much damage no matter what. So that's artificial in its own way, because it's not hard because it's hard because you're tying my hand behind my back. At that point in the game, I could never have good enough armor to withstand more than 1 or 2 hits. It's impossible. It's just not going to happen. The only difference, maybe if you got lucky and like the Dark Knight at the start of the game like dropped his breastplate or something. But that's the closest you're going to get to like maybe having better armor. But that concept, like I said, it's not new to Elden Ring. It's not like it's new. And there's not a lot of fights. I can think of a lot of fights in Dark Souls where it was unfair per se, where I was like, this is stupid. Like, why is this a thing? But I think all of this is just to compensate for the open world. I think that they're expecting people to grind, they're expecting people to do a lot of stuff, and if they don't, they're not going to stand a chance. But if they didn't make it hard, then even if they didn't grind, it'd be like a evenly paced experience. But if you did grind, it'd just be like people would bitch it's not fun. People would bitch and say like it's too easy, it's not hard at all, it's too easy. Like I can't believe they made an easy Dark Souls game. Like that's what you'd hear immediately. So I understand the implications behind it, but it doesn't make sense why.
Yeah, like they've got some kind of reputation of bold.
Yeah.
Which I think is bold and fabricated, but you know.
Yeah.
I have my own opinions about the Dark Souls of things, but
oh yeah, no, I'll talk about Sekiro real quick, just to like finish off that subject. That's not only my favorite Souls game because of the combat style and all the cool things you can do in that game. It's very balanced. That game's really fucking hard, but very, very often when I died, I'd be like, that was my fault. Or I'd be like, well, I fucked that up. Or I'd be like, oh fuck, I didn't time my block right. Or I didn't time my parry right. Or like, I didn't do this X thing. Like, that was my fault. I fucked up. And that game pissed me off like any other game does.
Oh, yeah.
But I kept coming back because I was like, what was a rare experience for me was like I was annoyed and like frustrated because I couldn't beat something. I was having fun the entire time. Like I was like, this is really fucking fun though. And like every time you get a little bit farther in the fight, you're just like, fuck yeah, man! Like I'm doing that much better, and like it feels really good. And what I like is that game is a gatekeeper boss. Like there's a boss that like, if you have not been paying attention up to this point, you will not get past this boss.
Really?
And like that's the gatekeeper. It's like if you want to keep playing this game, you have to learn, put everything you've learned so far to use and fight this boss like that. And I really like that.
That's a really cool thing. I don't think that I've played anything in recent memory that encapsulates that. So maybe I need to give that game another go.
I just see videos where you can cheese that boss, but like,
why
exactly?
Why would you cheese any boss? Like,
I don't know.
That's part of like the thrill of the fight. Like if you beat it and you cheesed it, did you really beat that boss?
Yeah.
Like that's my favorite thing about the actual difficulty of Dark Souls, and like being able to talk about this specific game with other people, is there's no variable difficulty. You beat that boss the same, like probably not the same way, not exactly, but you beat him just like everyone else. Like that really ties into what you said before about like you just being another one of the undead. I think that's a really cool concept. Like, no, you can't lower the difficulty. You can do things to make this fight easier for yourself, but you killed him the same way as everyone else. And I think that is a real benchmark. Like that, it's just awesome to me, and that's why it has such a dear place in my heart. Of yeah, I did this, and you can talk to someone else and be like, well, how did you do it? And they're like, oh, well, I did this, this, and this, but I did this, this, and this, but you killed the same boss. It's not like, oh yeah, I dropped the difficulty down to easy just so I could take it. Like, nah, man, that's not a thing you can do. And I appreciate that a lot about this specific series.
Every other Souls game is very well balanced. Elden Ring is the only one I've played so far that I feel like is not balanced. I feel like the combat is bullshit on purpose to make it harder because it's an open world game. Every other Souls game experience I've had, like I think it's a very evenly paced combat. And I think that you have that same feeling of like, well, I fucked up there. Like maybe I should have done this. Or maybe it really is as simple as like, you know, maybe you should grind a little bit, but it's not like you need to grind fucking like 30 levels. It's like, well, maybe level up your health a little bit. Maybe level up your fucking strength a little bit. Why don't you try this other weapon you weren't using, you know? It's very simple compared to like, well, I'd rather go fucking fuck off for 20 hours and then come back.
Yeah. That's the whole point of this. That's the artificial difficulty rearing its ugly head.
I think the last thing I want to say about Soulsborne, or Souls in general, before I turn over to you, because I know you have some thoughts about that.
Oh, yeah.
I think a lot of this comes from, even Dark Souls, even FromSoft's kind of caught up in their own bullshit. I think that the whole, like, it's the Dark Souls of X, the way people tried to mimic it over the years, I think even FromSoft is caught up in that, you know, they made the game where they're like, well, I have to keep topping ourselves, otherwise it's going to, you know.
They have an artificial reputation to maintain.
Yes, and I think the whole thing with like people who attempt to make the Dark Souls of X, there are people who very clearly try to mimic Dark Souls, but I think what they don't understand is that they are trying to make an impossible game because they think all people want is a hard game.
No.
But Dark Souls is special. It is hard, but there's a lot more to that world than people realize. There's so much more to it.
Mm-hmm.
People love the lore. People love the story. People love the implications. Like, you just see something, and you're like, huh, I wonder if this is what happened. Because it doesn't directly tell you. No. And that's the Miyazaki thing at work. So people try to mimic it without really understanding what they're trying to copy. And, like, that's why a lot of Dark Souls clones, essentially, are just, they're soulless, ironically.
Yeah, no, I was 100% going to say that. So Mortal Shell is the last Souls-like I tried to play. And I got maybe 2 hours into that game. I was like, this is not fun. Like, I don't care about this universe at all. I don't care about any lore at all. It feels empty and a very blatant ripoff to me. Like, it takes a lot to get the title of bad game from me, and that one gets it. Like, this was a bad game. I didn't like it.
Did you ever play, man, what was it called? It was my first encounter with a Dark Souls clone.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was called like Forsaken or something like that.
That doesn't ring a bell.
The dude on the cover has like a mohawk, and he looks like a Warhammer character, but like it's clearly a Dark Souls ripoff.
Is it like Viking-esque?
I think the vibe on like the cover is Viking-esque. I don't remember. It might not be called Forsaken. I cannot remember what it was called. But it came out a long time ago too. Like, it came out before Bloodborne did, I think. Like, I think it came out a few months before Bloodborne did. I don't remember what it was called. I'll think of it later. But that was my first encounter with a Dark Souls clone. And that was exactly my feel. I was just like, for one thing, I was like, this feels like Dark Souls 2, which is fucking terrible.
Ugh.
And then for two, I was just like, this just seems empty. Like, not once have I been enchanted in this game. Like, the 5 or 10 hours I've been playing it. I can't remember how much I gave it, but I know minimum 5, but maybe more than that. But I was like, yeah, I don't feel anything from this game. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to care about or any of that. And
yeah, that's not a good feeling.
It's not a good feeling, no.
That was my entire experience with Mortal Shell. I was like, wow, a dreary, depressing world with mega hard mechanics and nothing I care about. Like, if I wanted to play this, I would just play Dark Souls. Mm-hmm. Like, and I think that's a fine place to stand. Like, I understand people wanting more content, more things like that. I get that.
Yeah.
But why go great value when you can get name brand? Like,
yeah.
There's no reason not to. I think they're like a big part of what makes a video game truly great to me is replayability. Mm-hmm. And I don't think these games are built for that. They're one-off to scratch that itch until the next game comes out, and to me, I don't think that's fun. That's not for me. I'd rather wait.
No, I mean, Dark Souls games have like the replayability of like trying something new. Like, exactly. You can just try something new. What got me hooked on Magic was in Dark Souls 1, because I played the entire game like many times, and like my standard build is just like high vigor, high endurance, high strength, and like mm-hmm. that was like my build. I was like the tank.
Yeah.
That was what I made. And then I just randomly made a profile or a new game where like I made like I called it like a spell thief essentially, because I started off as bandit and like only leveled up agility, only leveled up the pyromancy skill, I can't remember what it was called, but mm-hmm. And then intelligence. Those are my 3 stats instead. And so like I was just a very quick magic user essentially, and like I enchanted like magic weapons essentially, and like that was really fun. Like, that was a unique experience. Like mm-hmm. I started that playthrough was like I'm just gonna try this, and then I like a few days later I beat the game again. I was like, okay, like that was pretty fun.
That's what I love about everything being viable. Like, if you want to run it that way, be my guest. Mm-hmm. It can be done, which I really appreciate. I guess that's where you get like the difficulty scale, but then again, you get people who will do soul level 1 no death runs using a shield.
Yes.
And like I will never be that level, so I don't even think I'm a good Souls player. I just really like it, mm-hmm. and I think that's fine. Which
those people are like a whole new breed, and like those are the kind of people who play like Mythic Plus on WoW and stuff like that. They just want something hard. They just want it to be difficult no matter what. They're looking for the Dark Souls of X essentially.
Oh god. I'm charging up, man.
I can feel it. Should I keep going, or you want to look?
It's not that I have a lot to say about this. It's just what I have to say comes from that deep part of my heart. Okay, that phrase. This is the Dark Souls of X. Mm-hmm. I hate that phrase so much. Like, I get it. Dark Souls is a hard game to the untrained eye. No, this is not a hard game. This is a difficult game. This is a challenging game. Like, I feel like people forgot. Like, because I started with Super Nintendo, right? Mm-hmm. People forgot how challenging those games were. Were they beatable? 100%, totally. But you're going to put some hours into it. And when you beat it, you felt like you earned it. Mm-hmm. That is one of my all-time favorite games for Super Nintendo is the Bonkers game.
Oh, yeah, Bonkers the Bobcat. Oh, yeah, man.
It's fun. It's challenging. Every time I played that game, I got a little bit farther, and I felt like I had achieved something. So picture going from games like that, and then PS1 era, like Final Fantasy Tactics, also a challenging game. I feel like there was a dip that happened sometime when I was just getting ready to graduate high school, where I would say like the first time I noticed it was between Soul Calibur 2 and Soul Calibur 3. I felt a massive drop off for difficulty. Like, this didn't feel challenging to me anymore. I got this overinflated sense of ego about it. I was like, oh, well, I'm just really good at Soul Calibur. Turns out, no. I'm really good at Soul Calibur 4. Mm-hmm. I went back to play 2 again, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right, this game kicks my ass. So I feel like there was a point of stagnation in gaming where things weren't hard, and then you had titles that came out like Ninja Gaiden Black. That game was hard as hell. I still have never beaten it. It's hard as hell.
I've never even played it, so...
It's rough. It does not feel good. It goes in dry. It's not a fun, like, it is a fun game. That's the best part about it. It's challenging. It's fun. I enjoy conquering the few levels of that game that I have conquered. But then, like, then I feel like Dark Souls came around and people are like, oh, this game is impossible. Like, did you forget how far we've come, like, from these mega difficult games into this now? And I feel like that's become such a benchmark, and that's the one that people remember. That's what sits in recent memory. So that's what people say, like, oh, this game is the Dark Souls of X. I'm like, you're just trying to sell your game when you say that. Like, biggest example, a buddy of mine had me try out Cuphead. And he's like, oh, this game is, like, super impossible, dude. It's like Dark Souls. This man has never played Dark Souls before. He has no idea what he's even referencing. He just said, oh, this is like Dark Souls. I'm like, you have no idea, man. Like, that's the buzzword that you've latched onto, that buzz phrase, and that's what you're repeating now. And that's, to me, a massive part of the problem. I played Cuphead, and I was like, this doesn't feel like a quote-unquote Dark Souls level of difficulty. This game feels like a Super Nintendo game, and I quite liked it. Like, I've played, like, maybe 2 levels of it, and I was like, man, this is great. Like, this feels like playing Bonkers again. Like, I really enjoyed it, but... yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say on that subject. Like, I wish people would find a more inventive way of saying something is hard or challenging or difficult, or even, like, refine their scale a little bit. Like, I've noticed as Americans, we tend to try to go top shelf for everything. Like, so the scale is really skewed to me. So, like, if people just, like, refine what they have to say, like, if Dark Souls legitimately is the only thing you have to compare, like, difficult video game wise to, then fine, I've no problem with you. That's okay. But if you've got, like, a pretty good catalog under your belt, I feel like there's more difficult games in their own genres that you could compare your game to. Like, somebody trying to tell me that NHL 21 was the Dark Souls of hockey.
What?
Oh, yeah.
Even that statement annoys me. I don't even like hockey or sport games, really.
I left. I don't talk to that person anymore. Like, there's a lot of lead up to that, but that was it. That was like the phrase that stuck with me. I was like, dude, you just opened your mouth and stupid fell out. I'm done talking to you forever. Like, I'm done with this.
The final straw, huh?
Yeah, that was it, man.
I think, going along with what you said, there's a really big difference between, I like to say, challenging and tedious.
Yep.
And tedious things can be really fucking hard. It doesn't mean that they're hard. It just means that they're really fucking annoying, really, really drawn out, really everything. Like, World of Warcraft became that after a while.
I would agree.
The reason why I think that... So I've always said that... I don't know if I talked about this in the MMO episode. I probably did. But I've always said that, like, Mists of Pandaria is where things went downhill.
Yeah, you did say that.
I think a big reason for that is because Mythic came out. Mythic difficulty came out. It's like, oh, I can do Mythic and Pandaria, like this new level of difficulty. It all it did was add more health to the boss. That's really all it did. And so you had these fights where usually, like, I remember, like, vanilla raids, dude, where, like, it was so tight. Like, it was like if you didn't do the thing, you might kill your raid group. You might fuck up. You might kill the raid group. It was so tight. Like, you had to make sure you were doing it. And those fights only lasted, like, what, 5 minutes maybe? Like, maybe 3-5 minutes. Now you have these boss fights and, like, started in Pandaria, like, now they're up to, like, 20 minutes each, like, where it's like, yeah, it's a 20-minute fight. You just have to deal with that. And all it is that the boss has more health, you take more damage, you deal less damage, and those are the varying levels of, like, anything. Like, they have Mythic plus Dungeons, where it's, like, Mythic fucking 5, 6, 7, like, whatever. That's literally what it is. The modifiers are, oh, yeah, the enemies have double their health, the enemies take less damage, you take more damage. Also, sometimes there's random shit on the floor that, like, does a bunch of damage to you. That shit is tedious as fuck.
Yeah, why would you do that?
Like, if you tell me that, like, that is a hard thing, I'm like, no, that's just annoying. Like, that's, again, you're tying my hands behind my back and being like, isn't this hard? I'm like, of course it is.
Yeah, it's hard for the sake of being hard.
Exactly.
And like, hard does not always mean good.
It does not, no. It's okay to like a challenge. I love a challenge, personally.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with enjoying that. That's why I like the Soul series. I think they're the perfect level of challenge for the most part. There's things in it that pisses me off, sure, but you know, not as much as Elden Ring has so far. Their official difficulty, like I said, it's very small in other Souls games. It still exists. It's still there. Bloodborne is kind of where it started with the whole like multiple enemies, like huge AoEs, fucking massive, like everything. That's when that whole thing started, I feel, but. You know, it's always been fair enough where I'm like, okay, like, this is still good enough. Like, I don't feel like this is impossible, essentially. Why would you ever want to fight something impossible? Like, even if you succeed, like, all you do is piss yourself off. Like,
you don't enjoy it at the end. I don't.
You don't enjoy it at all. No. There's a reason why WoW gamers are like some of the angriest people in the fucking world right now. It's because their content has sucked for years, and all they've gotten for it is like harder and harder stuff because that's what they want. But none of it's rewarding in the end. Like, none of it actually matters.
Boy, do I have a point on that. So, again, the last time I played WoW was when Shadowlands released. Started playing with my wife. And I was really upset about her first instance encounter. Like, because just from what I noticed, the first instance that we did there was a purely mechanical fight. And that's not where I come from. Like...
What do you mean purely mechanical?
So the way this fight operates is you have to take this angel to ride to the top after you clear this graveyard. I don't even remember the name of the place. I only ran it the one time, and it sounds
like it was on Bastion. That was like a really boring zone, so I don't really remember it much.
Yeah, okay, so do you remember the one where you take the angel to the top, and then you fight the dude, and he's on like a stage, essentially, and in order to get him off the stage, he throws these hooks at you, but you have to dodge out of the way, like right before these hooks hit you, so you can grab them and yank him off the stage, and then beat his ass for a few minutes, and then he goes back up there. Again, it's a long fight. And somebody who was brand new, like she was, to be introduced into that, and basically thank God that raid group, or that instance group, was mostly my friends, because they were very forgiving of her, because she didn't understand that that's how that operated, and neither did I. I was not from the era of mechanical WoW fights. Like, one mechanic, sure, like tail sweeps and stuff on enemies, you gotta jump over that. Like, that makes total sense. But like this, I was like, this just seems like they crammed as many mechanics as they could into a single fight. And that's not even the end. Like, when you get to the end, you fight that necromancer on top of the tower, and he randomly will drop frost novas and freeze your team. He will randomly teleport one of you out of there, so you have to run this gauntlet to get back to an angel to port you back to the top. And for me, I was like, why? Like, she spent her entire experience in there getting ported off and not doing any damage. And obviously that boss fight is slated for 5 people, so we were not doing super hot with it. It felt difficult and knacky for the sake of being difficult and knacky, and that's what killed it for us eventually. It was like, this is stupid. If we can't experience this part of the content, which is what I sold her on as being the best part of World of Warcraft, is grouping up with people and taking on dungeons. And she didn't enjoy that at all. And I was like, well, then this, to me, when I played last, was what the game had to offer, and it was great. But yeah, like, I don't like things that are difficult for the sake of being difficult, or knacky for the sake of being knacky, and that checked both of those boxes. I was like, wow, this is bad. I don't want to play anymore.
I mean, it gets worse with WoW. Like, it's not only just like really, long, drawn out, tedious fights. It's the way you progress in the game. Like, for many expansions now, like I want to say since Legion came out, there's been this particular special kind of currency for each expansion, which is basically just all the same thing. It's all fucking artifact power. But for a while, there was a cap on how much artifact power you could gather. And that went more and more into each expansion. Where, like, I think currently now in like Shadowlands, there's something called Anima, which is like a special resource for
That's
like
right,
that.
yeah. That sounds right.
But like, I don't know if they changed it since then. But like, there was a hard cap on how much Anima you could earn weekly, which apparently went towards like your legendary weapons or gear or whatever it is. So like, this process that like, if you were committed, if you want no life the game for like 2 or 3 days, you could probably do. They purposely made it take weeks and weeks and months and months and months, because there's just why, like,
yeah.
It's to draw out the process. They don't have any content. So they're like, well, if this takes a long time, then no one knows we don't have a lot of content. It's this whole thing that takes way longer than it fucking has to. Like, it's just tedious. Like, I would not do it. I would not enjoy the in-game, quote-unquote, World of Warcraft anymore.
No, me either.
It's not like doing a raid over and over again where you're like, oh, I hope this thing drops, or like, I hope that, I need this material to like build this like legendary weapon. Like, legendaries used to mean so much more, man. Like, they used to mean so much more. The people who like got Sulfuris and stuff like that, and like Vanilla WoW and like Thunder Fury and stuff like that, like,
oh yeah,
that was some hard work. It takes a lot to get that stuff, but like, there wasn't necessarily a cap on like how much you could do of it. It was just like, how much time you want to put towards this.
Yeah.
And there were people in raids I remember who like, they're like, oh, I just need the thing to drop. That's it. Like, I have all the materials, like these super rare materials. I have all of them. I just need the thing to drop. I was like, yeah. And like, it's funny too, because like every time you're like doing something in guild, they're just like, oh yeah, I'm farming right now. Sorry, I can't.
Oh yeah, I'm busy.
Yeah, like.
Yeah, I remember the first legendary I ever saw. It was my buddy who'd been playing since vanilla. This was in Wrath, and he finally got either all the stuff to make, or actually he was actually in his inventory, but he had one of the glaives
of Azeroth? Warlords of Azeroth?
Yeah, he had one of them, and he's like, dude, check this out, I got this really cool thing. And I was like, that has orange text, I have no idea what that means. And he went and explained to me how rare it was. And then from pretty much then on, that's the only one I saw for a long time. I was like, wow, that really is legendary.
It is, yeah. Server first were a really big deal for stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in addition to that too, like, so speaking of things like that, like, the reason why artifact power irks me in such a way because I looked it up and it has something like a 78% drop chance. Like, it's literally on the loot table for a boss. So most of the time you're gonna get fucking artifact power. They made everything else in the game, like gear, weapons, materials, whatever, it's super low drop chance. So again, that's just artificial difficulty at work, where it's just like, well, if it takes a long time to get this, like, dangle that in front of you, but like, it's not going to happen. Like, so I mean, that's some things with like MMOs essentially, where it's like World of Warcraft, especially, even new MMOs that have come out. Like, I know New World, I haven't played it, but people said New World's the same way, where like, in order to advance in that game, you basically need like certain marks or something like that, and they only drop off of very select enemies. That you pretty much, like, it's like playing EverQuest again. Like, you kill the enemy and then you just wait fucking 30 minutes for it to respawn. You just sit there and do nothing. Like, you watch Netflix or something, like, oh, it respawned.
Oh yeah, time to get back. Yeah, dude. So I play Warframe with my wife, and it's very difficult because that is very present in terms of reputation. You have a reputation cap that you can hit in a day, and once you've got all the reputation from a certain faction, that's all you get. The one saving thing I will have with it is as your like core level goes up, as your mastery increases, that cap increases too. So there is a way to get more of it a day, but I'm at a point right now where I cannot get up an entire level in a faction in a day if I spent all of my day.
That's the free to play mindset though, is like,
yeah,
it's a free game, so like they're trying to entice you to like spend money on the cash shop or whatever.
you can't get reputation that way. You have to grind it.
Oh, really? You have to grind it?
You have to grind it.
Wow, that sounds artificial as fuck then.
Yep. It's annoying, and it's...
Would you say that's the I haven't played Warframe very much. Would you say it's like is that like in-game essentially, like getting this reputation?
So what the reputation allows you to do is, with certain factions, you can take that reputation and you can spend it on specific vendors for that faction to get blueprints for materials. And the bitch of it is, to build certain parts for certain warframes, you have to have that specific thing that you can only get from that faction.
Gotcha.
So it all depends on, like, it just so happens that I need to build certain parts for a warframe that I want. I don't need it. I absolutely do not. I could continue playing the game without it. I do not need it, but I want it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something you want to do, like, go for it. It does sound very tedious for like no reason, but
I guess, okay, there's a total workaround for that. One I hadn't considered until you said that. I totally could negate this entire process by going to the shop and just buying the warframe straight up.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
But I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
There's
the rub, man. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. I want to build it, because there's like accomplishment in that. And the cool thing about, if you need those specific things to build that specific warframe will generally drop in the bounties for that place. So you're getting the parts and the blueprints while you're getting the reputation. So they do work hand in hand. And you can spend them. Like, you can spend your reputation points instead of going up a level with them. You don't use your actual currency, you use those reputation points to buy the things from them. So it's kind of counterproductive in that way too. It's like, I need to go up the next level, but I really need this blueprint. I'm out of daily standing, so I have to, like, do I buy this today and just not go up today, or do I wait and get it tomorrow when I can't? Like, a whole balancing act. I think it's kind of fun in that way, but it is, I think, in that same vein, very artificial.
Yeah. I don't know when it was for me. It had to have been like early PS2 era. But I remember when game difficulty, it would tell you what the difference was. So it would be like, oh, this is normal, this is the standard, like, if you want to blah, blah, blah. But then there were the games that would be honest with you about it and be like, oh yeah, in this game mode, enemies have more health and you take more damage. That kickstarted this whole thing for me, where I started playing a lot of games on easy mode because I was like, wait, so the only difference here is it's harder for no reason.
Yep.
So the combat will not change. My level of skill does not matter. This will just take longer for no reason.
Yep.
Cool. I'm just gonna play this game on easy mode. And through that, I've actually discovered like several games that really have a good balancing act of, like, they're very balanced for combat wise, and it says a lot about early games because there's an even pace for it, which I really like, and that kind of advanced to like some of my other favorite games, like Devil May Cry, for example. Like 1 and 2 were really weird. I think they were trying to figure out their stride there, especially with combat too. But Devil May Cry 3, I think that game's really, really balanced in all aspects, because even playing the game on easy mode, when I later got like the Dante Must Die version where you got to play as Virgil, I did the cheat code where I unlocked all the difficulties, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to play through every single difficulty from start to finish, and I'm just going to do it. There was no trophies back then, but I was like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, for me.
And so easy mode on Devil May Cry 3, very well balanced. Like, if you won't have the upgrades, you won't have the extra weapons, not until you get that stuff in your playthrough, but like, I think it's a really good benchmark. Like, it's just, it feels good. Like, it feels the right level of challenge. It's not easy. It's not too, like, punishingly difficult. It's just, like, it feels good. And, like, that's what I want to see more of, is, like, balanced gameplay. And even Dark Souls, like, its few flaws it has, like the artificial difficulty, it's always been a balanced gameplay. It's just, it requires a certain higher level of, like, commitment, but it is balanced in that way. Kingdom Hearts is the same way.
I would agree.
I will play, like, you can play story mode of Kingdom Hearts, and, like, as long as it's your first playthrough and, like, you're not doing new game flows like you can with later games, it's a really great balance. Like, it's, if you don't respect it, it'll kill you still. Like, it's not going to be just like a mash X to win thing. Like, you still have to play the game correctly.
Right.
And it's very well balanced. Not Kingdom Hearts 3. Kingdom Hearts 3 is easy through and through. I've never done a level 1, like, whatever, only Keyblade, like, whatever, fuck, I've never done that shit on expert, or, like, I think they have, like, critical now. I've never done that. But just playing the game how you're supposed to play the game, like I think 3 was like a lot easier than the rest of them. But I think 3 is also more so focused on the story, which I can't fault it for. But 3 was lacking in a lot of ways. But that's not what this is about.
Yeah.
Dragon's Dogma 2.
Oh yeah.
So have you been playing that on standard?
Yes.
Yeah. So standard I think is very fair. So it was like the easy mode. Like easy mode, like if you ever want to drop in the difficulty, you'd still feel the same level of challenge because I think that's one of those games where it's very honest about the fact that like the enemies just have more health. That's pretty much what it is. They have more health and they take less damage. I think it deals more damage to you as well. It's very honest about what it is. So it's not like it will be easier per se. It'll just be like things will take a lot less longer, pretty much.
Oh, cool.
You know, and that's what I'm a fan of. Like I just just like with WoW, like I don't want a fucking 20-minute raid. Like I just want I just want to experience this thing. I don't want to have to do this fight. Because shit like that's even worse when you die. If you wipe, like, you wasted 15 minutes of your life. You have to fucking start over from the,
Yeah, and now you're coming back with a chip on your shoulder, which, for me, that's why, specifically from playing Souls games, I will do the same fight 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can't progress beyond this point, I'm like, my frustration is going to get to a level where I'm kicking my own ass pretty much, and I can't do that, so I stop. And I noticed I was having to do that more and more in WoW. Like, wipe 3 times in this, and I'm like, dude, I'm done. Like, I can't do this right now. I have to do something else.
Yeah.
Which the beauty of that game was able to. I could go chill out and fish for a while if I really wanted to.
Yeah.
Which is something I'm appreciating about Elden Ring, because I am running into that, but I can go piss off and ride my horse if I want to.
Yeah. It does kind of have like a good, like I said, the discovery reward system is very good in that game.
Mm?
It is fun to just kind of find a random thing and be like, oh, this is neat.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think talking about like balanced games on, and thinking about it now, yeah, there was totally difficulties in the first 2 God of War games, right?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Yeah, because I remember those games felt really good on all difficulties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I wasn't making that up.
No, I think so too. I got Sarah to play them. She played all 3 of them, and she was playing on easy the whole time. But like, there's times like I'd take the controller, I'm like, oh, this is kind of challenging. Like, I get it. Yeah, no, it's just when combat is evenly paced or like well balanced, then easy is not such a bad word. Like I don't like I don't feel like people should be criticized for being like, oh, I want to play the game on easy, and like, well, you're a fucking scrub and like you're not good at the game, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, cool, man.
Because I've done some of the hardest games in the world. I've done some of the hardest raid content in the world. I'll still play my game on easy if I want to, because I don't want to waste my fucking time on it. So
yeah, no, that's okay. I think that also comes from the whole Dark Souls of this and Dark Souls of that. Like, when did difficulty become a measure of how good a game is?
Or how good you were at the game?
Yeah. Like, if you're sacrificing the important benchmarks for me, which are tell me a good story, let me live in this world. If you're prioritizing difficulty over those things, maybe rethink.
Yeah.
That, again, I don't hand out the bad game award very often, but that is a real fast way to get there for me, is like, oh, you prioritize difficulty over making something that people actually want to play.
I mean, you can tell what kind of like WoW player someone is when you ask them what their favorite expansion is, because people who care about the story will be like, oh yeah, Wrath of the Lich King was the best expansion, easily. Elitist douchebags will be like, Wrath was way too easy. War of the Draenor is the best expansion. And that's because they had those really weird challenge rating things you could do, where like it basically where Mythic Plus came from. It's where like I think like Mythic was like everything's a huge milestone in that game. Like even normal was like really fucking annoying. I mean, it was after Pandaria, so of course, but like even like normal was fucking annoying, and then like heroic was annoying, Mythic was really fucking annoying, and it did everything, man. Because like going up from each difficulty, all it did was bosses have more health, deal more damage to you, take less damage. Also, here's these old bullshit mechanics now, just so more stuff to do. I feel like really the measurement should be like, well, how long do you want your boss fight to be? Because that's what it equated into after a while. It was just that. So you can tell what kind of person it is. Like, what's your favorite expansion?
Oh yeah, I would agree with that. Like, should be an option, like when you're going to drop into an instance or a raid, it's like, how much time you got?
Yeah, it should. I feel like it should be, because the thing is too is like people will it's such a backwards fucking concept of like, if you can beat the hard game, you're a god tier gamer. But if you can't beat the hard game, you suck.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, hold on, like, all right. And you experience this in WoW too, and like a lot of MMOs where it's like, you don't know how to do this fight, like, you fucking suck at this game. I'm like, it's my first time. What do you want from me?
That's what we ran into on the one time we ran that instance. We went through 3 healers because they were bitching out the guy that was running tank for us. It was like, oh, I'm just, I wouldn't have to heal you so often if you didn't suck at this game. And he's like, cool, man, boot. I'll get somebody else. Like, it's not that he was doing bad. It's just inexperienced players, and it was also our first time running it. Like, again, I got a lot to say about elitism too. Like, I think I hit on this in the first podcast. Mm-hmm. I don't like that the term casual is a 4-letter word. Mm-hmm. I hate that.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing wrong with just enjoying something. Like, I think it's a huge trademark of being a total asshole when you're telling somebody how to consume media.
Especially when they enjoy what they do. Like,
yeah, if you're having a good time, you're winning.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter how you're doing it. And like, it would be a little bit of a different story. Like, all these people are assholes and all these people are unhappy. Like, WoW players are some of the most unhappiest people in the world, and like, it's a meme. It's, people talk about the internet constantly. Like, it's a thing. People who play WoW are upset. They're not happy. They're not in a good place.
No.
So much so that like, people talked about like, when they started playing Final Fantasy, like, because WoW's been so bad, they're like, I'm gonna try a new MMO, and everyone's like, well, you should try Final Fantasy. Like, fine, I'll try Final Fantasy. They literally changed their personality. They're like, this is what fun is like.
Yeah.
And like, they've literally become better people. It is insane how like, just having fun in your life, because MMOs become like a second job after a while, man. Yeah. Like, imagine like going to your job, which you probably don't like, for like 8 to 10 hours a day, and coming home and playing WoW for 8 to 10 hours before you go to bed, and then sleeping for a few hours and just repeating that and fucking repeat over and over again. Like, how much does your life fucking suck?
I've never seen with any other video game like the dead behind the eyes soul gaze at a monitor that comes with veteran WoW players. Like, there is no expression in their face at all, unless it's rage.
It's because we love it. We really did love that game at one point. Some of us still do. I will always love it for what it was, but not what it is now. And I've let go of that. If Blizzard did one thing right, it was releasing Classic WoW and like Classic TBC and stuff like that, because it really showed me that, like, yeah, I love what this game used to be, but not what it is now.
Yeah.
Because even playing like Classic, it's not the same game.
No?
It's not. It's in... Part of that is because of the community. Or really? A big part of it, rather, is the community. The community is full of elitist douchebags.
God damn it.
Who regale you with stories of like how hard Classic WoW was, or how hard Burning Crusade was, and stuff like that. And now they're like, oh, I know everything about this game, so you have to do it exactly like this. And it's like, shut the fuck up. Like, I'll play the game I want to play it. Yeah. And like, oh, you fucking suck, and you kick out of the group or whatever. And like, that was my experience playing Burning Crusade. I was like, man, I fucking hate this community. Doesn't matter what game I'm playing, this community fucking sucks.
They are fighting tooth and nail with League players for the most toxic fan base. Like, fighting hard. That is my biggest turnoff with League, because I think the gameplay is very cool. I think the characters are cool. I think the universe is cool, but I cannot stand their fans. Like, I got so much shit from my friends that played because they're like, oh, well, what's your favorite thing to do? It's like, dude, I queue up bots because nobody talks to me and I can just play this game however I feel like playing today. It's like somewhere along the way people forgot that this is supposed to be fun. Like, this is supposed to be enjoyable. This is an enjoyable experience. And again, I have to relate it back to difficult means good. No. It should be fun first, I think. But
I think if I could describe like the combat in Elden Ring, it would say that this game is honestly an asshole.
Yeah.
It really is. The ways I've died sometimes, I'm just like, that's a fucking dick move, man.
I felt like all of my deaths so far have been earned.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, I'm not super great at these games. I just like to play them. I think they're fun. At the end of the day, I think they're fun.
They are fun, yeah. If you enjoy that kind of challenge, it's fun. So I guess like if you take anything from this episode, it's play the games how you want to play it. If you want to play it on easy, go for it.
Absolutely.
If you want to survive in Souls games, just boost your health.
Mm-hmm.
That's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to guarantee take 300 damage, make sure you have 600. It's it's pretty easy stuff.
Math.
Yeah, my standard for any Souls game now, or actually any game that's like hard, quote unquote, with this kind of stuff, like I just boost up my health until I can take a few hits. I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah. I can survive.
Yeah. Right now in Elden Ring, I'm rocking 1,000 health. Like I more than doubled my maximum health or my starting health. I was just like, I doubled it, and I'm like, okay, cool. I don't need any more hit points anymore.
It's the first thing I boost to. I get it to 20 first.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm gonna take a shot. That's how it happens.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I have anything else to say.
No, I think that pretty much covers the bullshit that is artificial difficulty.
Yeah. Well, if you like this episode, definitely let us know. If you're on YouTube, comments, go for it. If you're listening on Spotify or Anchor, my Twitter is still loading OFC. You can tweet at us there. You can talk to us there. Yeah, we want to hear from you.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, have a good rest of your day or night whenever you listen to this.